Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today. My name is Jerry, and I'm a member of the AltSchool Africa team. I'm a program manager with the team, and together we are trying to build the next generation of talent inside and outside of Africa. Today, we're going to be talking about something pretty simple. You can see the title says Learn, Build, Grow, and Repeat. But before I go into that, I would like to appreciate the organizers of this particular event. Thank you so much for having me. I couldn't be there physically, but I hope this still has the same effect as me being there in person. So, like I said, thank you to the organizers for putting this together. The importance of this community cannot be talked about enough. It's very important that we keep on having these conversations that help us become better. And then, speaking of becoming better, today's topic and what I'm going to be talking about is all about becoming a better version of yourself. So, you can see learn, build, grow, and repeat. So, you might ask the question, why exactly do you need to even think about any of these steps? Why do you need to consider learning? Why do you need to consider building? Why would you want to grow? And why would you even want to try the whole cycle right from the beginning, right? So it's exactly as simple as it is. Learn, build, grow, and repeat. In the industry we find ourselves today, in the software engineering, in the product development, in the data industry as well, you would find that it's important that you evolve over time. And that leads me to the next line, right? The hype is not equal to the grind. I came across a tweet recently by Adora on Twitter, right? And she was talking about how a lot of us young people get caught in the noise. There's a lot of noise today on social media, outside social media. Everyone wants to talk about what they're doing, talk about what they're interested in, but today I would like to remind you that it's not about the talk. It's never about the talk. It's never been about the talk. It's more about the work. And you need to have that in your mind all the time. So a lot of times we could get carried away with, wanting to maybe gather a following or wanting to show people what we're trying to do and what we're doing. And we're forgetting the fact that before you can start talking about what you're doing, you can even start now, but if you're going to be talking about it, right, you need to also be able to back it up with the work. You know how we always say, show you're working, right? The hype is not equal to the grind. It's been a very interesting year for, it's been in a whole, all round, it's been very interesting, both for, the software industry, the startup industry, the financial industry. It's been crazy. And I think 2022 has given a lot of lessons. And if there is anything that I'm going to be taking out from 2022, and I think you should also take it out from the year, is that it's very important to develop, whatever it is you're building. If you're building yourself, if you're building maybe a startup, if you're building a team around something, it's very important to know and grab as much knowledge as you can. It cannot it cannot be overrated or anything like that. Having the knowledge and knowing how to do is very important. In my just about 5 years of running learning programs, and I've seen it play out a lot of times, right? It is the people that invest all the time trying to develop themselves, trying to learn one thing or the other, trying to do as much as they can. It is those people that always come out 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, getting best roles, doing the best, the most influential things, because they have that knowledge in them. And it's also that same saying, you cannot give what you do not have, right? And in your personal journey, it doesn't matter what exactly the space you're playing at is. whether you're a designer, whether you're a dev, whether you're a data scientist or a product marketer or a content writer. And it doesn't matter what space you're in, right? It's really important that you grab as much knowledge as you can and sort of like invest in knowing how to do what you do best. You know, so that's saying when they say that it's important that you invest time, you try to learn as much as possible, you try to grab as much information as possible. It's not for lack of a better word, it's not cap, right? It's actually important that when whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're learning, you try as much as possible to grab information. And how do you learn, right? Aside from the resources being scattered everywhere on the internet, which we all know, you know a lot of us get to tend to get caught in this web where we're learning, right? For example, you could be learning how to write JavaScript, for example, and next thing, maybe the next day, you're in a conversation with your friends, and then they're telling you, "Oh wow, JavaScript is getting outdated. You should go and learn C++ plus plus or something like that, or you should go and learn C sharp." And then you find yourself leaving, you know, sort of like wavering, leaving JavaScript and then trying to go and jump into something else. But mind you, at that point, you're yet to get as much information as you need to get. You've not also practiced in that particular space that you're in. So it's important to focus on learning. Grab as much information as you can. You'll notice that if over the years, you'll notice that your ability to keep on learning would avail you the opportunity to keep on providing value, no matter what space it is that you're in, no matter what team it is that you're in. It's important that at every point in time, you do not stay complacent. You do not try to, just sit back or coast. Whatever it is, even if you're working at a job where you're earning as low as 40K or 30K or something like that, it is important that you do as much as you can to provide value. And you can't provide value if you're not constantly learning. And so you need to take that part important. So aside from learning, right, it's important to then focus on the next step, which is building. While you're learning, if you're using tutorials, if you're in a cohort of one of these learning programs, it's important that you try to apply whatever it is that you're learning. Again and again, it is always said the best way to learn is by doing, right? So you need to practice, you need to build projects, you need to join teams, and you need to be very active about these things, right? You need to set a goal for yourself. For example, over the next 3 months, I'm going to work on 3 projects, for example, right? You do not need to do that in particular. You can decide to you can do it at your own pace. Over the next 3 months, you can do one particular major project, build something, try out something. You are going to grab even more knowledge, and that's exactly where leads me to the next line, which says you are as good as your last work. So even for some of us who are already experienced engineers, experienced developers, right, you might also get caught in that web where you're just floating. I mean, you know how to write code, you know how to build stuff, and at some point it just feels like you're just there. What's next? So I've also been opportune to actually run a learning and talent acceleration program for experienced devs, and you find out that there are levels to this thing, right? So you can either be a junior dev, a mid-level dev, or a senior dev, and you might be a mid-level dev, and you find out that at some point you're just doing tasks, you're just deploying code, you're just doing the same things over and over again. But trust me, you can always find space to learn and even build better, right? So an example is if you might be working with an organization that has a product that is being used by 10,000 Nigerians, for example. But imagine if you join an organization like I want to say Twitter, but they just did layoff, so I won't use Twitter. So let's use Netflix, right? Let's use Netflix, right? Um, Netflix is being used by millions of people, millions of individuals. So you find out that the way that you write code, the way that you build stuff for a product that is being used by 10,000 users, is going to be totally different. But for when you're building for a Netflix that is being used by millions of people. So you're actually as good as the last work that you did, right? So for every project that you're being part of, that you're building, that you're contributing to, you notice that, from each project to each project, you're getting better. You're getting better at the way you do things, right? You're, writing this particular line of code different. You're optimizing this particular thing. You're factoring in security into this other thing, right? And then even in that process rather, you notice that your approach to solving problems also gets better, right? So this is something that you need to consider. So we've touched learning, we've touched the importance of building as well, and we're also going to talk about growth at this point. So these things are actually, it's sort of like a natural happening when you're consistently trying to learn, when you're consistently building. You would find that you are automatically growing, so getting better at what you do. But then you might also need one part to it that you might have left out, and that's where mentorship comes in. um I've what in the process of my in the process of my career, I've actually also had that experience where I have had programs where I have had to attach mentors to mentees and all of that, and I've seen that it works, right? So it's important that you do not try to do this thing alone. You're trying to become better at what you do. You're trying to grow in a particular space. You cannot do it alone. You need to find someone that you can set your sights on. You can sort of like mirror what that person is doing and how that person has grown. You might not have outright access to that person. That person might be someone that you might not have access to. But you can try. You can try to network, reach out to the person, or you can even look around your environment. There are people that have more of this experience that you do. And when you grab that knowledge, when you grab that mentorship, you move to the next step, and that's growth for you. And then next thing, that then brings us to the repeat part, because it actually never stops, right? Like I said, you need to consistently learn, consistently build, consistently grow to keep on giving value at any level, right? As a developer, as a data scientist, as a data engineer, as a product designer, product manager, whatever it is, whatever role it is that you play in the space, you need to do these things. You need to consistently evolve. Please let this be like a sign to you. I mean, a lot of us, we have this habit that we might pay for a course and then we just leave that course hanging, right? If there's a course that you have that you've paid for somewhere, or you have access to resources that you have access to, go and touch that thing. You need to become better at what you do. You need to, have that problem solving technique. You need to, you'd find out that the software engineering space actually is getting, saturated to an extent. But not to discourage you, of course. Organizations are always trying to build new solutions that are coming up every day. But you also need to be a standout developer. You need to be, and then that brings, you need to be really good at what you do. And then that brings me to this question: how bad do you want it, right? Are you a developer just because you just like developing, or do you want to be at the top, right? Do you want to be at the top of what you do? Do you want to be, one of those badass, best problem solvers that can come out and say, "Oh, this is what I was able to implement at my time with this organization," or "This is what I was able to do when I worked with these particular guys." Right. So, how bad do you want what you want? So, ask yourself that question and then try to put an action to it. Try to put an action to becoming better at what you do. In case you have any questions about me, about this particular presentation, if there's anything that is a bit confusing, you can reach me out. You can reach out to me on Twitter, or you can even send me an email as well. I'll be happy to respond. I'm going to leave you with this quote, which is casually becoming one of my favorite quotes. You can't ever go wrong when you do the most. And this was said by a wise man on one particular day. That wise man might be me or not. But anyways, you can never go wrong when you do the most. Thank you for listening to me. I would appreciate if you take time to look at yourself, look at what you do, look at the ways that you can get better at what you do. Find a mentor, consistently trying to build, consistently try to grow, and you see that results will be glaring. Thank you so much for joining me.